At 2:14 a.m., two R-360 Neptune cruise missiles were already skimming the Rostov steppe at 80 meters, covering 250 meters every second, locked on a facility 55 kilometers east of Russian-occupied eastern Ukraine. Inside Building 2-7 on Instrumentalnaya Street, the overnight shift at Atlant Aero LLC was assembling Molniya-2 strike drones, the same medium-range kamikazes that had been killing Ukrainian positions in the 20 to 50 kilometer rear zone for months. The workers didn't know that since 1:50 a.m., a Ukrainian Navy coastal missile element had already committed the launch. They were building the weapons that would make this strike necessary. And in roughly 3 minutes, the factory that birthed Russia's cheap drone war was about to become the thing it produced: wreckage. The Neptune was not designed for this, not originally. The R-360 began its life as an anti-ship cruise missile, 870 kilograms, a 150 kilogram warhead, subsonic at around 900 kilometers per hour, built to skim the Black Sea at wave height and punch through naval hulls. Its original range was about 280 kilometers, enough for coastal defense, not deep strikes. But the long Neptune, the version Ukraine had been quietly developing, changed the math. Ground-launched, land attack adapted, with a reported range of up to 1,000 kilometers. What had once been a ship killer was now a factory killer, and the Ukrainian Navy was the unit pulling the trigger. The targeting logic was not complicated. It was circular. Atlant Aero's production line built Molniya 1 and Molniya 2 airplane-type FPV kamikaze drones, and the Molniya 2 R reconnaissance variant. Open-source Ukrainian analysis described the Molniya 2 as a medium-range strike platform, maximum takeoff weight around 10 kilograms, combat load between 3 and 5 kilograms, range about 30 kilometers, or endurance up to 40 minutes depending on configuration. Basic radio-controlled versions were vulnerable to electronic warfare. Fiber optic versions traded payload for jamming resistance. That was the low end of the supply chain. The high end was worse. Atlant Aero also manufactured components for the Orion E, a medium-altitude, long-endurance strike and reconnaissance UAV. 3 hard points. Maximum takeoff weight 1,150 kilograms. Maximum payload 250 kilograms. Cruising speed 200 kilometers per hour. Endurance of up to 30 hours. The Orion was not cheap plywood drone territory. It was a proper ISR strike platform, and its component chain ran through the same workshops the Neptunes were now approaching. Ukraine wasn't burning a warehouse, it was cutting a vein. 55 kilometers east of Russian-occupied territory, the factory sat inside Taganrog, a city that had already been hit. In January 2026, UAVs struck the area and residents reported damage to Atlant Aero and the nearby Beriev Aircraft Company. That strike changed the security posture. Not enough, but enough to add layers. The factory perimeter had been tightened. A rooftop overwatch position had been established on the industrial tower overlooking the main production yard. A sniper team tasked with perimeter defense against saboteurs, reconnaissance cells, and small observation drones. The position made sense. Industrial facilities have long sight lines, gantries, water towers, flat roof lines stretching 200 meters in every direction. A man with a thermal scope and a clear field of fire could control the ground approaches for half a kilometer. The problem was what he couldn't control. The sniper was defending against human threats. The Neptune didn't care about humans. At 900 kilometers per hour, it was autonomous in its terminal phase. Killing the spotter drone wouldn't stop the missile. It would only stop the confirmation. In the control cabin 90 kilometers west, a Ukrainian operator had been holding a low-resolution thermal feed for the past 11 minutes, relayed from a small reconnaissance drone orbiting 120 meters above the northwest corner of the production hall. His job was not to guide the Neptune. The missile had its own terminal guidance. His job was to watch. Battle damage assessment. Eyes on target before, during, and after impact. He needed the drone to stay still. The sniper needed it to move. On the rooftop, the thermal scope caught something. A flicker. Not a bird. The thermal signature was too consistent, too hot for ambient air. It hung at 120 meters, barely moving, like a kite with no string. Roofline. Left tower. Someone is watching the yard. The sniper adjusted. The target was small, probably under 3 kilograms, prop-driven, holding a fixed orbit. At that altitude and angle, the shot was possible, but not easy. Wind across the industrial rooftop created unpredictable thermals. The drone was drifting slowly east, maybe a meter every 2 seconds. He didn't know the Neptune was already 18 kilometers out. At 250 meters per second, 18 kilometers meant 72 seconds. Taganrog's point defense, if it was active that night, faced a math problem that no operator could solve cleanly. A Pantsir S1 system, designed for exactly this role, point defense of military and industrial installations against cruise missiles and precision weapons, carried 12 missiles and could theoretically detect a subsonic cruise missile at around 36 kilometers. At 250 meters per second, that detection gives the crew about 144 seconds. Time enough, on paper, for acquisition, classification, target priority, launcher bearing, and fire control alignment. But paper is not pavement. The Pantsir's missile engagement zone begins at 1,200 meters. Its effective cruise missile intercept starts at roughly 12 kilometers. At 250 meters per second, that engagement window is about 48 seconds. 48 seconds for detection to become classification, classification to become priority, priority to become a launcher solution, solution to become a missile in the air. And if the Neptune crossed inside 1.2 kilometers, the missile intercept window was gone. At 250 meters per second, that last 1,200 meters took 4.8 seconds. The gun zone, 200 to 4,000 meters, offered a backup, but a subsonic cruise missile crossing 4 kilometers of gun range at 250 meters per second gives the 30mm cannons 16 seconds. 16 seconds to slew, track, and pour enough rounds into a target moving faster than a formula car at 40 to 80 meters altitude. The Pantsir had the system. The system had the specifications. The specifications said it could be done. The problem was that 48 seconds is enough for a clean intercept only if everything aligns on the first attempt. Detection, classification, priority, bearing, fire control, launch. That is 6 decisions in 48 seconds. 1 hesitation in any link and the window compresses. 2 hesitations and the missile is inside gun range. 3 and the missile is inside minimum arm distance. And the Neptune was not alone. The sniper steadied. The drone was still there, 120 meters up, drifting, its thermal dot barely distinguishable from the warm exhaust plume of the ventilation stack behind it. He had a solution. Maybe. At 2:17 a.m., the first Neptune was 6 kilometers from the factory. 24 seconds. The operator on the Ukrainian side saw the thermal feed wobble. Something had changed on the rooftop. A new heat source, a shift in position. He didn't know what it was. He didn't need to. His job was to hold the feed, not to fight. The sniper squeezed. The round crossed 120 meters in a fraction of a second. It missed the drone by less than 2 meters. The thermal draft from the ventilation stack had pushed the projectile path just enough. The drone wobbled but didn't fall. The operator flinched, then steadied the feed. Feed's back, holding. 12 seconds. The sniper cycled the bolt. The drone was still there. He acquired again, adjusted for the thermal, and began the trigger press. He never finished. The first Neptune hit Building 2-7 at an angle that carried the 150-kilogram warhead through the roof and into the production floor. The detonation was not a fireball, it was a structural event. The warhead's energy converted the workshop's metal framing into secondary fragmentation. Assembly jigs became shrapnel. Molniya fuselages, the ones waiting for wings and warheads, became fuel for the fire that followed. The second missile struck 1.4 seconds later, 90 meters east, punching into a second production facility. The sniper never heard the first impact. At 900 kilometers per hour, the missile arrived before its own sound. The shockwave hit the rooftop position like a wall, not wind, but pressure. By the time the sound followed, the production hall was already burning. The reconnaissance drone was still in the air. The feed showed what satellites would later confirm. At least one building destroyed, several others damaged. The operator held the feed for another 40 seconds, recording the thermal bloom spreading across the industrial compound, then pulled the drone west and let it run home on residual battery. He had what he needed. The sniper no longer had anything to guard. The morning told two stories. Rostov Governor Yuri Sliasar said 3 people were injured and that commercial infrastructure and warehouses were damaged. Russia's defense ministry claimed it shot down Ukrainian drones, guided aerial bombs, and a Neptune cruise missile. Neither statement named Atlant Aero. Ukraine did. The Ukrainian Navy confirmed the strike used domestically manufactured Neptune cruise missiles against the Atlant Aero enterprise. 5 days later, Ukraine's General Staff updated the assessment. 2 production facilities destroyed, 4 damaged. Satellite imagery confirmed at least 1 building flattened and several others with visible structural damage. The target was a full-cycle facility, design, manufacture, and testing of Molniya-type combat and reconnaissance UAVs, plus components for the Orion program. What burned that night was not just metal and concrete, it was throughput. Drone bodies that would have reached the front in weeks. Orion components that would have extended Russia's ISR reach. A production chain measured not in rubles, but in sortie rates. Atlant Aero didn't fail because it was undefended. It failed because the defense architecture solved the wrong problem. A sniper on a rooftop can stop a saboteur. A Pantsir crew with 48 seconds can intercept a missile if detection, classification, priority, bearing, fire control, and launch all chain together without a single broken link. But a low-flying cruise missile doesn't negotiate with perimeter security. It doesn't care about the rooftop. It only needs the rooftop to be late. On one side, a domestically built cruise missile and a small eye in the dark. On the other, a production line feeding Russia's drone war, guarded by a system that had to solve 6 problems in 48 seconds and a man who was aiming at the wrong target. Somewhere along another industrial road, in another Russian city, another workshop is assembling another drone behind another fence under another security detail that believes the threat is a man with a rifle. The next Neptune doesn't need a man at all.